Very much Fear Dragon and Clem, and I like the fact that, you know, Clem really entertained a lot of those ideas, apart from Zombie Grub's idea. He just shut that down straight away.
I got shut down. Like 50 units surviving after 5 medevacs died, that's fine. But Marauders shooting up to help handle Corruptors, that's absurd.
Yeah, that was fine. Interesting. Clem had a lot of energy in that one as well, Roddy.
This parachute idea, the first thing that I think of is like one of the best feelings as a Protoss player is if you have like a Phoenix, right? Chasing down a medevac with units inside of it, then it dies. You know how much it would suck if you have to use all your graviton energy to then kill those units? And I was like, yeah, I think it would only impact TVT. I'm like, Clem, I would never win a game again, man. Like, that would be really rough.
It definitely would be. I mean, even if it's the Phoenix and then suddenly it drops 8 Marines and the Phoenix all just get shot down as well. It's like, what are we supposed to do? Anyway, ridiculous. Good
fun
job.
Idea, though. Fun idea.
It is a fun idea. I feel like that would exist in other RTS, you know?
Yeah.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Like it must already.
In Warcraft 3, whenever you lose the Zeppelin, like units just drop on the ground, they're a bit dizzy, but they live.
Oh yeah, good point.
Only if you lose the Zeppelin above trees or water, then it's GG.
All right, well.
I don't know what those things are, Roddy. They exist in StarCraft? I don't think so.
There you go. I have another interview as well, because we're just waiting a little bit more time here before we get into this game. So let's hear from good old Reynor, because let's get all the foreigners on. Let's go.
Hello, everyone. I am here with Reynor, and we're here to solve a very important question, and that's to answer your guys' questions about potential balance changes and suggestions from the community. I have scoured Battle.net, and I brought here Reynor to react and give his thoughts on some of these suggestions. How you doing, Reynor?
I'm doing good. I'm not excited though, at all for this. I already know I'm gonna mold, but other than that, yeah, it's fine.
All right, let's get started. So I have Ray of the Sun from Battle.net forums. It says sensor towers should require energy to operate. How do you feel about that?
Well, that's a good suggestion. I like it. 1 point for me.
Okay, you know, that's a pretty good suggestion. Another suggestion from the same person from Battle.net forums is units inside a medevac that die should not also die if you research a new upgrade called parachutes.
That's a little bit of copium, I think. Yeah, no bueno. You already have the boost. Medivac should never die anyways.
Okay, and we'll do one more suggestion from the same guy, Ray of the Sun. Great suggestion so far. Ultralisk should be able to teleport while burrowed, much like a battle cruiser does.
I actually agree with that. I think it would be a very good change for the game overall. I think very healthy. But yes, please make it happen.
All right, well, thank you guys so much, and thank you for your balance suggestions. We'll catch you guys in the next one.
Wow, thanks, Reynor, for clarifying all of those points. He's a good kid, is Reynor. And, of course, he is going up against Classic. So, I mean, Roddy, let's talk about how this could potentially play out here. Because, of course, we know Reynor as the whiz kid, the wild, fast guy, going up against someone like Classic. What are you anticipating in a game like this from him going up against Classic?
Maybe it's not too different to what we saw earlier today, what we started to show off with, Creator versus Serral. That was a fun series where we did see Creator obviously have a very cheeky build in Game 3, where he got awfully close to getting the job done. Classic does not shy away from using those builds once in a while if he believes in it, but I think we're going to see a lot of double robo. I think it's a lot of double robo into one ultra powerful attack. I think Reynor is anticipating that kind of stuff as well, and then I'm curious to see if Reynor is going to go with the Serral approach, where it's like, all right, let's get quick Hive, quick Viper, and just make sure we have Vipers ready for that first big attack of a couple of Colossus, Disruptors, or a mix of that. Or if Reynor does it the slightly more complicated way, where it's like, no, we're going to smash this over and over again with lair tech units, and then once I feel ultra safe, that's when we'll sneak out the Hive. Like, that's what I'm looking forward to in this series.
Fair. ZG, any thoughts?
I was thinking about what I guess would be kind of like a weakness of Reynor's, because it does kind of matter on his form sometimes, what tournament he's playing in. But I've had to think about ways that Classic has interrupted Reynor. It is in those early games, and that's actually what happened with Serral as well, so bring it back to the earlier best of 3, which is that occasionally the Protosses do just the right things to really break the Zerg flow in the first 5 minutes, basically, and then that really jumpstarts them into such things as Roddy was talking about. So I think that's going to be, we're going to get, like, I think a very clear image in the first 5 minutes of Game 1 of this best of 3 as to who is feeling it more, or you know, a confirmation that Classic really does just have Reynor's number, or Reynor's actually doing going to be fine in offline tournaments. I think it'll actually be within the first 5 minutes that we're going to know the rest of the series.
That's spot on. We often look at high-level PvZ and it's like the first 5 minutes, same song and dance, couple of adapts roam around the map, an oracle, second oracle, and then it's like, is it going to make a third one or a fourth one, or going to transition? But the first 5 minutes are so ultra important in high-level PvZ, because we saw that in that second game. Creator found way more damage than I've seen anyone found against Serral for a long time,
Sure.
and that's just clever adapt movement that's willing to commit when you kind of like, you can't always be 100% certain in StarCraft, right? It's a game of incomplete information, but if you see just enough that you know this is the right moment to let the Shade finish up, you grab 4 drones, that opens the door for the Oracle to be more successful, and it makes a night and day difference in the Zerg economy if they lose 8 drones or 1 drone. Like, if Classic kills the 0 workers in the first 6 minutes, I have a very hard time believing that he wins any game against Reynor. If he gets 10 plus, I have a hard time believing that Reynor can withstand the next push or the next push of Classic.
Yeah, because he's not the kind of guy that's going to allow it to, if he gets that early damage, he's not going to allow it to go all the distance. He knows that that's a decent advantage for him to then continue on with a game plan like that. That being said, though, for me, so far throughout the day, I don't think there's been huge question marks about who's the favorite too much in the previous games and stuff like that. But I do have a few question marks around how this game could go because of that kind of those recent games online ZG, but also because it's now in an offline setting where, you know, as you say, Reynor comes alive and Classic could quite easily do something a little bit tricky. So what do you think?
I guess it's kind of like one of the harder matches to call.
I think so.
We're kind of getting at. Yeah. And I think that is true. There were favorites, especially when you looked at, for instance, Clem Dark and their history in the last 3 months. Like, unless we saw, if we didn't see that, then I would have been a lot more like guesswork. But this one, it's like Classic the last 3 series, not the same as Clem the last 7 series. So that's not really like, you know, proving that he has something against Reynor, and then the offline performance really does change things up. So yeah, it's definitely the most question mark of the series so far. We are going to find out what's going to happen in the next 4 series.
True.
After this one's done.
True. Well, guys, I'm getting word that we actually do need a little bit more time before we actually go on to this series here. So we're going to go to a short break. Sorry for that, guys, but when we return, we are going to be getting more here from Gamers8 very, very soon. See you in a bit.
Wow, our first round of the group stage is almost about to conclude, Fancy, with this match coming up next.
الراوند الأول من الجروب ستيج على وشك إنه يوصل إلى النهاية مع كل النتائج غير متوقعة اللي شاهدناها حتى الآن في هذا المسرح.
And I know every match has been awesome, but this one looks particularly awesome. Reynor, one of my favorite players, classic, a player since the very beginning that has an incredible resume.
One of the people that everyone says that he's the greatest of all time. فخلونا نشوف أعزائنا المشاهدين إذا فعلا المباراة هذه اللي راح نشهدها هي بتكون على نفس جودة اللاعبين اللي احنا راح نشوفهم الآن. زي ما احنا عارفين رينر كلاسيك كلهم من الأفضل في العالم في تاريخ ستار كرافت، والآن جاهزين أن نقدمهم لكم على المسرح.
And I do want to give a quick shout out to Ravi, who's been doing those interviews. I saw him catch up with Reynor, get some thoughts on balance changes. Fortunately, we've got the good old-fashioned regular StarCraft happening here.
أعزائنا المشاهدين زي ما تشوفون الآن بيكون عندنا فرصة أننا نشهد مباراة حرفياً شاهدينها قبل أسابيع قليلة جداً وكلنا عارفين وش نتيجتها، بس خلونا نتكلم عن وش اللي صار في المباراة أصلاً مع اللاعبين مع المسرح.
All right, for our final match of round 1 of the group stage, let's invite our first player out. From Basilisk, Reynor! In Katowice 2022, he claims second place. And now he's hot off a victory from Home Story Cup just last month. Let's see if he can pick up another win this week.
رينر من فريق باسلكس ظهر معنا في المسرح، هو حرفيا تو طالع من فوز من احد اكبر المياجر الهوم ستوري، ماخذ الفوز في المركز الاول، زياده على كذا هو الفاينلست في ايام كاتوفيتسا في 2022، وزياده على كذا هو ايضا فاينلست في الوول تيم ليج، فحدثني ولا حرج عن هذا اللاعب، فعلا الهيستوري حقه جدا جدا عظيم، لكن اللاعب اللي ضده لاعب جدا مميز في هذه البطوله، خصوصا التيم اللي هو يمثله، بس خلونا نرحب فيه اول. من فريق تويستد مايند كلاسيك. من احد افضل لاعبين البروتوس من انحاء العالم، الشخص اللي دائما يقولون عنه من افضل اللاعبين في عالم ستاركرافت في تاريخها، زاد على كذا في 2022 شاهدناه يفوز في المركز الاول في الكاستر سيفل وار، والان ظاهر معنا في المسرح ممثل لفريق سعودي الوحيد معنا في البطوله.
If you hear a little extra love from the crowd, that's because Twisted Mind is a local team. He's also our classic winner of the 2022 Caster Civil War, and just 2 weeks ago took a match off Reynor, so see how this turns out.
That's exactly what happened. أعزائنا المشاهدين اللي ما يدري، كلاسيك ورينر واجهوا بعض قبل أسابيع قليلة جدا في المباراة هذه، كلاسيك استطاع الفوز 2-1 واستطاع انه يورينا جيم جدا جدا رهيب وكان للتاريخ صراحة، لكن الآن راح نشهده مرة ثانية في جيمرز 8 في ستار كرافت، توفيق لهم إن شاء الله.
Gentlemen, please join us in the center of the stage to shake hands.
والآن جاء الوقت أن نشهد هذه المباراة معنا في الرياض. زي ما احنا عارفين كلاسيك ممكن عنده الأبر هاند في أغلب المرات اللي تواجهوا فيها، بس المرة هذه في أول مرحلة في الجروب ستيج بيكون موجودين في نفس المباراة، بالتوفيق لهم. وعلى طول نروح مع المعلقين نتكلم أكثر.
All right, if our players are all ready, then we can send it on over to the casters to start this match.
What is up, everybody? This is Tasteless and Artosis back together once more to cast you a truly epic match here at Gamers8 in Riyadh.
Yes, indeed. Tasteless, I'm so excited about this match. We're going to have a Reynor, just such a strong Zerg, one of the best Zergs in the world for a very long time now, going up against a returned classic. He has done his military duty, and he's getting into better shape every single day.
He certainly has been improving. It's important to remember that Reynor was really the player after Cyril to prove that an entire region could actually start to compete with the Koreans. Originally, it was Cyril that came out on top and became the first non-Korean world champion. But after that, it was Reynor who said, okay, this is now a thing. Europe is a real threat, and Classic's here to try to take that throne back.
Yes, indeed. And we're going to see if he is actually able to do so. You know, I think it is a little bit Reynor favored, but Classic should not be underestimated. He is very, very strong, but is he going to be able to deliver in a best of 3 against one of the best, most aggressive Zerg versus Protoss players in the world?
It's a tough call. Looks like we're ready to go into our first map here. This is a best of 3. This tournament is using the Swiss system. So very quickly here over the next 2 days, we're going to start moving forward here and eliminating players. Over here in the upper right, in the red, he is Classic. And his opponent down here in the bottom right in the blue, it is Reynor.
All right, we're on Dragon Scales here for game number 1. We have that probe coming out for the ever-popular hatchery block. And Reynor, let's see if he's going to get down there. No, of course he is going to have to go around to that third base location to make his first hatchery. Pretty standard opener here.
Yeah, this is very typical to basically nudge the drone into expanding into another area. In this case, it's a location that's going to be more accessible for the Protoss if there's any kind of pressure early on. And of course, it takes a lot longer to get the creep connected between the 2 bases.
Yeah, it's really annoying to have to deal with Adept Oracle pressure as well, which is the best opener in this matchup. You know, like just getting a few Adepts out, getting those Oracles, putting on a little bit of harassment. It's like the safest thing to do, it's the best scouting to do, and it's the best harassment to do. You know, it's almost very predictable at this point.
Yeah, it's predictable, but I think in a lot of ways it allows you to create opportunities to come in and try to hit specific locations, to try to do some damage, to try to come out ahead. And then from there, the Protoss has to figure out, you know, is there a more standard way to play the game? And do I want to go down that avenue, or do I want to do one of these unusual surprise timing attacks? And one feature of Protoss is they do seem to have a very wide range of tech and a lot of options at their disposal. But when going up against a player like Reynor, one of his core features is that he's extremely good at dealing with any kind of attack that's going to come his way.
Yeah, he certainly is. And don't forget, he's great at things like counterattacks. I really do enjoy Reynor's style. It's very different, for instance, from Serral's style, which does make this a different type of matchup. I think he is a little bit more vulnerable than some of the more straight-laced macro Zergs, but there's also that volatility when he does start getting his lings out on the map.
Well, he's very able to create chaos and very good at making any Protoss player feel uncomfortable leaving the map. And, you know, and a lot of the big attacks that Protoss try to do that are not in the very late game, they're not with full complete tech where you're on 4 or even 5 bases. If you're punished when leaving your base, a lot of times the wind is taken out of your sails. You're not able to make that time and attack. So Reynor hinging a lot of his positional play off the opportunities that can be created with counterattacks is key.
Very, very true about that. Now, he does get a couple of Zerglings in here and just confirms exactly what's going on. Oh, a little bit of a misplay there from Classic. Throws out that shade and actually does not turn it off. So the Ling gets around, doesn't really see too much, but it does get to verify that, in fact, a Void Ray is on the way. Not the most common opener here.
And the Void Ray was not canceled. It would be a little bit late to cancel it anyways, but it is going to go ahead and finish. And you're right, Artosis, the Void Ray, it's not an Oracle that can come across the map and try to snipe workers or tag units later on. It's not a unit like the Phoenix is that you're going to accumulate a bunch and maybe try to create opportunities later on there, although that's pretty rare in this matchup, especially nowadays. The Void Ray basically can sweep the map and kill Zerglings, kill Overlords, and ultimately, oftentimes protect that third nexus that's going to be made very quickly here, of course, accompanied with an Adept, usually with a pylon there to wedge the Adept in between the nexus and the pylon and set up a nice defense.
You know, this is kind of funny because like opening with a Void Ray in Protoss vs. Zerg, maybe 2-3 years ago, it was relatively popular. And of course, Classic was around and very, very good at that time. But he's going for Void Ray, 1 Oracle, 3rd Nexus into a Fleet Beacon. Like, I think he's going to be using one of these very old Skytoss builds that open up with Mass Void Ray.
In Korea, we haven't been able to see as many PVZs since Terran have been so dominant. By the way, nicely done getting 4 drones. You know, with Terran winning so much in the Korean scene, in the Korean meta, this is a matchup that's really a novelty at times. But it does seem like we've had the beginnings of this becoming a more typical approach to the matchup. Now, typical doesn't always mean it's going to work, and that's really what we're going to find out in the next couple of minutes here. But I do think this is a good way to play the game versus somebody like Reynor, who, like we were saying earlier, likes to rely on counterattacks, likes to punish a timing attack-based Protoss. Instead, this is a very passive way to play here from Classic, kind of almost like you're playing the single player a little bit here, especially as we see the carrier tech.
Okay, this is kind of crazy to go 2 carriers right off the bat. Like, no one goes for super fast 2-port carrier. Like, I'm a little bit confused about this, but you see the follow-up here of a Twilight and a Forge, and this is suddenly reminding me of some of SOS's old builds.
Oh, that's a good point. I hadn't really thought of that, but that's right. This is what we might call a tech leap. A lot of times you're supposed to tech into one thing so that you can safely tech into the next thing, and maybe, you know, something bigger even after that, because there's going to be periods of the game you're not exactly safe, but instead we've gone right to the end game units. We're only about 6 minutes into this, and already I see not only carriers made, but carriers moving across the map.
Absolutely, and in fact, that's all he's going to make for now. This is like an adjustment to an old SOS build where he would rush a couple carriers send them across the map, and you don't have that much anti-air. The Queens don't actually deal with the carriers that well, so you start picking some of that off, and you follow it up with a massive gateway attack. And it is crazy to see this right now.
He's not making more carriers, at least in my mind, and I'm sure for some of the people watching, when I see carriers start, you kind of think, okay, you're going to keep going, right? We've seen this with battle cruisers used versus Zerg. I was certainly taking from those ideas as I was trying to cast the strategy out here, but instead, it's like a stick shift in a car. He's completely shifted gears, and now he's going to go into a gateway timing attack. Look, a +1 attack, Stalker, Blink, that's normal. But not after you make 2 carriers and harass on the map.
Absolutely. This is some crazy play that we see here. Now, the Queens are here. There are spores being made, and he is going to have to pull back. He's taken a fair amount of damage on these carriers. He has lost some of the interceptors. Going to have to let some of those rebuild as well. And Reynor, here's the thing. I think that Reynor is reacting to this rather well. Like, he's getting the Spire, but he's mostly droning up. He knows he's not going to die to these carriers.
You know, it is very much like that battle cruiser attack in the TVZ, right? You come out, you try to harass. Ideally, you don't lose one like you're going to see right here. But the damage that can be done, and it can be quite a bit, really does begin to accumulate. But the follow-up with the Stalkers, the question is going to be, is this too far out of range? By the way, in some ways, this also seems to look a little bit like the way that Hero plays. Expanding at times nearly ahead of the Zerg. We have 4 base to 4 base. I thought this was going to be carriers into that timing attack. Obviously, eventually those Stalkers will move out and hit, but a 4th base with that.
Yeah, the 4th base, plus he made a couple more Void Rays. This is really a Classic special right now, using a little bit of everything. Now, let's see, can these Blink Stalkers get some significant damage? Not a lot of ground units here. You know, we do have some Ravagers coming up to join those Roaches, but Classic's Blink Micro is going to make this probably a pretty decent trade.
Yeah, a pretty nice looking arc, but it does seem like Reynor has enough to spread them on either side. We've got Lings and Ravagers now in pursuit of those Stalkers, which are going to flee back to that 4th base. Positional bases like this, obviously it's good to get the extra resources, but they also make a good launching pad for attacks onto the Zerg, since it's one of the bases that's basically closest to the Zerg from the Protoss's perspective. We've got Storm coming, we have another attack upgrade about to finish. It does seem that although Classic's build is really different, very cool, at the same time, it doesn't seem like it's really slowing Reynor down.
No, it doesn't seem like that, right? Like, Reynor did do a very good job of continuing to drone like we were talking about. He did have enough units to stop the initial Blink Stalkers coming in. But Classic is all over the place. He is on 4 bases. He's got a very healthy 78 workers. And now back into carriers?
Yeah, how funny is that? Carriers into a hard shift of Stalkers, then maybe back into a couple of carriers. He did have, 2 earlier. It looks like he's going to go up to 3. Again, this is a bit more of an exploratory cast as we're dealing with a build that we haven't quite worked out in the meta itself. But I guess the real question I'm asking myself is, what is the right number of carriers?
Who knows? It's really hard to say, but anytime your opponent is sitting there making ground units, carriers will be good if you have them out. If you have the interceptors, the damage output from carriers is extremely high. So maybe this is going to add just enough that he holds on against any incoming Reynor attacks. And we know Reynor's going to attack soon because he is maxed out.
Yeah, he needs to get rid of that supply. And then remake it to only attack. And again, it looks like these Lings are going to be just out of range of this trap setup over here. And there's also an attack that's set up to hit the 4th base, although I don't know if it's going to get in there just yet. But you can see Reynor is trying to do a little bit of positional play. A very patient Classic is able to respond and kind of nudge this back without really suffering too many losses.
Yeah, 16 probes fall, maybe a couple cannons that were warping in. But at 62 probes, he is going to be able to refill his worker count to exactly where he wants it. Still some more counterattacking coming in here from Reynor, and it seems like he's getting ready to try to maybe attack that 4th base, but I don't think it's really attackable right now.
Yeah, we have Corruptors being made too with that freed up supply. Some extra Lings are going to hatch here, and more upgrades are going to continue to finish. And now we've got the 8 Broodlords, and so it's going to be one of these slow roaming carrier fleets versus a slow roaming set of Broodlords. And I don't know if this is going to clash head to head. You know, when you have 2 slow moving air groups, it's hard to really outmaneuver each other, right? I mean, eventually one's going to be stronger and they're going to be able to take the other on.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about the Broodlords, really. Like, what does he even have that shoots up? It's like 12 queens? Well, I think the Broodlords are not going to be able to really push that well. You're definitely going to have the creep way up there with the queens supporting them against these carriers. But as you can see, between Storm, Blink, and carriers, the Ravager's getting absolutely decimated.
Yeah, Reynor not going to really have to worry too much about the push over there. I do like the attack over onto the drones here now. What do we actually have underneath these Broodlords? It does seem like at least 2 or 3 were sniped. And again, the push itself from Classic, really not able to get much done. He's going to have to go back and remake the interceptors, but at the same time, it doesn't really seem like Reynor able to generate a counter push either.
Yeah, he's kind of just sitting there with like a weird unit composition, still getting some upgrades and everything, and making those Corruptors. I wonder if he's going to keep them in that Corruptor mode. I think so, because he does need a little bit more anti-air than what he has right now to fight off a carrier fleet.
The Lings get the cancel there on the Nexus. A little victory in what's really been a game where neither side is able to make that much of an impact. And a lot of times when games like this tend to slow down, you want to watch the resource accumulation over in the bottom tab of the screen. But the truth is, Reynor's got more, but not that much more.
No, not too much. Like, his creep spread is not super fantastic either. He's done a little bit of economic damage, but I feel like Classic is in a position that any Protoss wouldn't really mind. He's getting additional upgrades, he's getting additional Stargates, 5th Nexus on the way, and honestly, this roaming army is pretty darn strong.
Certainly is. We have this Baneling set that's going to come through here. He's going to try to just find any value he can and commit instead over to those probes. Meanwhile, we have the roaming army from Classic. It doesn't seem like it's quite able to get that much done. I think he could basically deny this hatchery and maybe even recall out if he needed to.
A little bit of harassment going down on the sides here. Some Zealots charging in, but the Ling Bane will be able to deal with that. Few probes going down as well as some Baneling counterattacks come up from Reynor. But it seems like Classic, you know, he's not taking too much damage right now, and I gotta say, I really like what he's doing with his Stargates now. Adding those Tempests, adding an Oracle, that's really going to allow him to snipe down Broodlords very efficiently.
We got to go big picture for a second here. The one base in the top right hasn't been taken. The 2 bases on the left have not been taken either. Zerg is trying to expand over here into the 3 o'clock spot, but both of these unit sets are very slow moving. So if you're able to outmaneuver the other, which is occasionally happening here, it's very difficult to recover the position. In this case, it does seem like there are some options available for Zerg to try to out-expand and kind of sidestep the carrier fleet, but at the same time, there's really not that many more resource locations left on the map, right?
No, not too many. And honestly, the way that this is gearing up, like you see all the upgrades starting to be gotten by both sides here, right? Like plasma shields are coming, another Stargate. We're even getting Ultralisk tech, a second Spire. like the timing to actually kill one of these players is almost gone. Like you see the clock says 15 minutes, 90% chance this is going to 30.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, it seems like there's no way for either side to finish the other one off. And the whole map layout with unit compositions like this, I think, only makes this more interesting. By the way, in the production tab, Protoss doubling down on air units. Yeah. We're going to see more Tempests, more carriers, maybe Void Rays, I don't know. We're going to have to see what kind of direction this game goes. And will Zerg, in fact, try to rely on Broodlords? It does seem like there is a sweet spot for how many Broodlords you want before it's diminishing returns.
Sure.
Mothership Core coming into play here as well. And again, not that many more expansions left on the map. And the placement of those set expansions, it's sort of weird. The bottom left and top right. This is I don't want to say stalemate-ish, but it does seem like there's a real odd no man's land that's been created here.
Yeah, it does look that way at the moment. You know, I do appreciate, by the way, that we still have Classic working hard with these Stalkers on the side. Like, he's still trying to carve out a little bit of damage before those do get fully traded out for a more powerful air fleet. A second Robo's coming up, and some Immortals are being made, probably to help deal with these Ultralisks. But you can see that both players are kind of going towards that complete endgame army. So we're going to get a little bit more turtled up, a little bit more stalemate-y for a bit while they get into the compositions that they think can win them the game.
It looks like we are going to have tension continue to build, and a slight positional advantage here for Reynor, at least for now. Reynor expanding into 3 o'clock. Now, there's been a couple cancellations here, but he's getting both that and this base here in the bottom left. And this means that Protoss has to make a move. And he may, in fact, just try to push in, or actually he might just try to shave off some creep tumors here or there. It's very hard to say. But if Classic can't deny both the 3 o'clock and the bottom left base, there's going to be problems here economically for Classic.
Well, yeah, Classic eventually is going to have to take that base over to the left. He actually gets his mothership out just in the nick of time and cloaks everything. That is not minus 400 right there.
Yeah, there's literally no way to commit down onto that Nexus if you can't see it. And the hatchery has been picked off as well. And I was actually trying to figure where that hatchery was. That was actually at 6 o'clock. And so he's taken that out. Obviously, you can retake that, but this is the one that's probably more important. The locations that are more fresh with resources are going to be more essential. The Zerg needs to keep that. And Protoss also is in a phase where they're going to start to sacrifice units. So they're going to try to commit down to locations. And I got to say, Classic is really playing a pretty masterful game of chess here, kind of moving his pieces across the board, taking what he can, making the sacrifices he needs to make so that he can set up and try to come in once more.
No, his multi-pronged play here is unbelievable. The fact that he has picked off multiple hatcheries with these Blink Stalkers that eventually you just want to trade out anyways, while running around with his main army killing bases and grinding down units, I have to be honest, like, I don't think that Reynor is playing poorly, but I do think that Classic so far this game strategically and just overall is outplaying him.
Yeah, he did a pretty brilliant play, taking out 3 hatcheries and causing a dramatic hiccup into the income. Normally we talk about Zergs knowing when to attack in with their units, sacrifice what needs to be sacrificed efficiently, and then remake another army to then do the same thing maybe 1 or 2 more times to win the game. This time we have it from the reverse perspective where it's actually Classic doing that. Protoss have a little bit of a harder time reconfiguring their army again and getting that complexity there because all these different units come out of different structures. But so far he's done it very well. Reynor's going to try to find an opening. It does seem like there's enough cannons here to basically sandbag the real threat, which would be the destruction of the Nexus. And so, once more, Classic is going to be able to drive this attack away.
Yeah, his heavy static D there doing an absolutely fantastic job for him. Again, his harassment has been insane. He's killed 6 hatcheries. You know, the Greater Spire is just now being rebuilt as well for Reynor. Reynor going to have to back up from here, and now we see that ultimate Sky Toss army being made. Look at this. He's got a mothership. He's got 7 Archons, 6 High Templars. He's even got that single sentry in there, not being lazy at all. 6 carriers. Are you kidding me? This is almost a perfect army.
It really is. Only one location on the map has not been claimed, and it's going to be this spot over at 9 o'clock. By the way, he is going to get the mothership. Now, you would think that's a really big deal. It's not exactly. That's going to be remade, but the mothership does force a Zerg to have to tactically engage it, and allows the Protoss to gain more time and basically remake that mothership now. We've got a push coming up over here into the top right. I don't know if Protoss has a recall available right now, but if he does, it would be great to try to use that. But you know, with so many cannons, you can really see how much more time can be bought. And by the way, Protoss is going to sack this, and instead, Classic's going to move down here into the south. Oh, never mind. He's going to do two things at once. Both cover this base with part of his army, at the same time smash the base in the bottom left.
Dude, saves that Nexus, brings his Archon High Templar to pick off the hatchery, and as long as he can get those Archons and High Templars out of there, he's going to be very happy with this trade.
Okay, and so we've got the Sty Storms coming down here. I think at this point in time, with the number of Stargates you have, you're probably willing, as Classic, to give up these air units to remake them again. And, you know, it's not the easiest game to call. I gotta say, Classic's playing very well. Reynor is not in the most ideal spot, but at the same time, Classic isn't winning this just yet either.
Yeah, like, I like where Classic is going. I like how he's played the game. But Reynor still has a lot of play left here. Like, he's keeping some damage on the right-hand side. Look at this, the big Broodlord push coming in that definitely needs to be dealt with. The Skytoss army, he's having a little bit of a hard time splitting it correctly. So the top right Nexus finally will be picked off while he tries to save this fourth base.
Now, it does seem like the walls are closing in here for Classic. Reynor has more minerals and gas banked up, and although we've seen these great plays from Classic, Reynor is basically able to recover and then fight back, and Reynor still has a considerable amount more of the map.
Reynor has a lot of the map. You're definitely right about that. He has lost several of these hatcheries, but as you rebuild them and remine those minerals, you know, the damage that you took earlier on, it's not actually going to matter as much because you're still going to end up mining those mineral patches, right? It's not like it's denied necessarily forever in a game like this.
That's right. We've got the pylon being made over here. Even little moves like this to basically curb progress and make it a Nexus over here are very smart from Reynor, I'm sorry, from Classic, who's actually, okay, I was going to say, why is he not killing that Overlord? He does take that out, or at least push it away. And the funds are really starting to build here for Reynor.
He's certainly starting to get a little bit of a bank, about 3K in each. Classic, though, as he maxes out, he'll start to build that bank as well. And notice the back and forth that we're seeing here, right? Some more Immortals and Ultras have been built on both sides. So they're both kind of like countering and recountering these smaller bits of the army.
Well, here comes another attack down here in the bottom left. This is apparently where Classic sees Reynor's big weak spot, is to come in here and basically smash this location. That being said, you saw some of those mineral patches. There isn't that much left over there. And if Reynor could just keep retaking that and soaking up the resources, he's going to be in good shape. The newest base here for Classic is going to be at 9 o'clock. And I do want to see, you know, if he's going to take that base, how is he going to stop Reynor from then expanding into the top right corner of the map over here?
That's true. If the top right is a base that Reynor can get, that would be gigantic. Now, this attack in, he actually takes on the pylons super quickly right there, so a little bit hard to defend. Calls in 2 Immortals, but the Ultras got out in time. So he will save the Nexus, but he's going to have to reset up all this defense.
That's right. There's also problems that Reynor could encounter here with just not actually having many more resources left at the bases that he actually had. In fact, I think the only really resource-rich location was 9 o'clock. There's only 4 patches left over at some of these bases. Others are going to be mined out in a matter of maybe 1 to 2 minutes.
You know, I gotta say, you know, we get a fair amount of Skytoss versus like these corruptor-based compositions from Zerg games in this matchup. But this is one of the most active ones that I've ever seen. Like, both players really doing their best with smaller groups of units to harass each other and get that extra damage.
Yeah. Classic, again, with his side of the map, you know, both top right and the 9 o'clock spot, I mean, I think there may be a little bit more resources at his disposal. This is, interestingly enough, it may end the way that many Terran versus Zerg, Terran Victory endgame games go.
Where you can creep tumors?
Where basically the Terran is letting the Zerg exhaust their side of the map, and the Protoss trading more efficiently may be able to overcome that by securing the last 1 to 2 bases on their side of the map. Again, it's not typical at all for Protoss for Zerg games to end like this, but here we are.
Well, once again, another attack here from Reynor, really utilizing the speed of these units to get in there and deal some damage. Gets rid of like an Archon, some static D, 10 probes, and then backs up immediately. One funny thing about this game that normally in this matchup you'll have like 80 workers versus 80 workers at this point. They've both been below 60 for a very long time now.
It's a good point.
So they're not actually getting like the 10K banks that we're used to.
That's right. Yeah, they've had to spend the money as it's come in. Classic, by the way, you know, it's almost like a StarCraft 1 PvZ here. I've seen how many cannons are being made at each of these bases, but it does allow you to really buy some actual time here as the game goes on. Now, you see an army like this over here on the right. I guess the question I ask myself from Reynor's perspective is, when are you going to start to hit that left side?
Yeah, he is going to have to go back over there, especially as you see these units over to the right-hand side, right? Like, when an army is in one location, you generally want to hit the others with this type of style. But look at that! Oh my god, that is a lot of cannons in there, isn't it?
Yeah, the two Immortals are very deliberate as well. If you try to come in there with Ultralisks, they're going to pick that off too. It's kind of a cool setup that he has over here. We've got a War Prism. I wonder what's in that. 2 Templars, so he wants to try to Psystorm drop, I would imagine. This base in the bottom left, although I don't think it's actually done yet, so he's not going to find anything.
Yeah, maybe he goes somewhere else where the drones are extra stacked or something like that. Not entirely sure. But, you know, trying to still get some of that harassment done. Honestly, drone kills right now are not like a terrible idea in a lot of ways, because we have been so low for so long. It is going to be a little bit harder to refill them. Although, looking at the minerals for Reynor, he is actually starting to make a pretty big bank.
Yeah, I think it is probably the slowest part of this actual game, right? And it's going to become very critical how the next few engagements go, because all StarCraft maps, there's only a limited amount of those resources. As you don't have that many more nodes to collect the resources from, the last few fights really matter, because eventually one side dries up or almost dries up. By the way, huge play there on those Immortals with the Infestors. The Immortals were there to kill the Ultralisks, so suddenly Reynor able to pierce the defenses over here and actually break this position.
That's kind of crazy. If he had not done that, then that's an easy hold for Protoss. Instead, he takes out a lot and continues to work on this base. Definitely something Classic's going to have to think about. He's going to end up losing his third base location here, but it is almost mined out. So not necessarily the end of the world to lose that finally after defending it for a good 25 minutes.
Some really smart attacks here from Reynor in what looked to be a neck-and-neck game. Suddenly, at least as far as what's in the bank right now, Reynor is massively ahead. I mean, you look at the situation, he was able to hit all 3 locations. He wasn't able to take out that Nexus at the bottom left, but he is about to kill this Nexus over here. And I think Reynor's maybe 1 or 2 big strategic moves in here from taking this huge Psystorm drop. But again, is it actually too late? There's so many resources banked here for Reynor. I think he can easily remake those drones and even easily sacrifice this hatchery.
Well, he is going to have to sacrifice some here. The Ling Ultra still running around trying to get some additional kills. Prism into the main base as he makes an Archon and warps in a few Zealots. Maybe he can get a bit of harassment or at least get Reynor off of his back for a moment here. Classic does have a couple pretty well mining bases, so I think he's still fine, but those are very split. So I feel like that's where Reynor can really put the nails to Classic.
How many minerals are actually left at that center right base? I really do wonder. Okay, so there's enough along with what he's got banked up. The issue right now for Reynor is that there's a push inbound here, and the Protoss has expanded into 2 extremely different locations. With the number of spores available here, you can't penetrate that area with the interceptors from the carriers. So it looks like he's going to be driven away there. By the way, these small Ling counterattacks become huge because now the Protoss has been forced into recalling to protect this infrastructure, which should allow Reynor to set up an attack either at the top right or the center left.
There's 2 things I want to see here from Classic Tasteless. Number 1 is a Dark Shrine. DTs can really help you clean up something like that without having to send your whole army. The second is putting your mothership on one side of the map and utilizing that recall. He's losing it in battles very quickly. I don't feel like it's adding to his army anymore, but utilizing it to save a base like this with a secondary recall, that would be a huge moment.
Okay, so the Broodlords take this out. Of course, Protoss doesn't want to commit into this area just now, but right now for Classic, I think if he moves out, he has to really figure out how to do damage. It's probably going to have to be at the 3 o'clock position up here. He will be able to push through these spores. Everything is becoming limited right now. The spores that are picked off can't be remade later on. Again, we're running out of resources on this map. This has been one insane hell of a game. We never really cast PvZs quite like this one, but here we are.
Well, another attack coming in from this Ultraling, even a couple Roaches joining them as well, showing just how strong those Ultras are against buildings. And another yoink there. I tell you, the Mothership was great the first time he made it. The second and third time, very, very weak. I would have really loved to see that just utilized for recall. Instead, he's losing it. He's starting to lose more bases, and it does feel like Reynor at this point is outplaying Classic.
Yeah, that base over that we were looking at earlier, and not this one, the one at the top right, probably going to have their long distance mine there. There's no point in having probes there. There's not that many more locations to take here. The center left seems to be probably the most desirable base to try to take here on both sides. The upper right seems like Reynor decided to give up on that, at least for now, but it is very resource rich, and as long as Classic has something like that to try to mine from, he can recover.
Well, another couple yoinks going in, 2 Tempests going to go down. Some good spells being cast, dealing damage, but not really gaining that value. More Tempests, another Mothership on the way, as Reynor just builds his economy back up from a very low 27 workers.
Yeah, when you get this late in the game, having a lot of workers doesn't really help. There's not that many resources on the map, but at the same time, you need to use most of that supply to make these massive death ball armies. Reynor is now taking back the few minerals remaining over here in the center right. The bottom left, it seems like Classic has decided to abandon that attack in there, at least for now. It seems like Classic is fearful if he moves down to the bottom left, a big counterattack from Reynor into the upper right would make him broke.
He has to keep top right. If he loses top right, the game is just over at that point. He is leaving like some decent defense. His recall is certainly back, so at least he has that. Now, adding in Void Rays and getting Void Ray speed, what do you think about that, Taste? Is that going to be actually a good add to his army here?
I'm not sure. You know, the Void Ray can play some interesting roles in some of these fights where you can really commit down to certain areas. There's obviously going to have to be a moment where the Protoss has to not just try to play, you know, a game of cat and mouse with the air fleet, but actually try to overpower the Zerg.
Yeah.
And, you know, this game, it seems like Reynor's been slightly ahead the whole time, but Classic is able to hang with him.
He has been, yeah. He's doing a rather good job. Now, is he going to be able to actually move up and, like, take over a new location? Are we going to be able to see Classic get another mining base? Because one mining base, like, if he loses this army, Tasteless, it's over. He just can't refill it.
Okay, this attack is coming in now. Let's see if he can try to kidnap the Mothership once more and get that kill. The Oracles are basically used to tag the army to monitor the movements so that the Protoss can always be ready. I love this counterattack. It's just enough to force the recall, and now it could be Reynor's move next.
Well, you utilize that recall there, so suddenly you do have some danger where, for instance, a large attack on the top right, if your army's on the left side of the map, may end up killing your last mining base. It is hard to move around correctly with this carrier fleet. Now, he's setting up for another base on the left, but we saw what happened last time he split his mining bases so far apart. Reynor really abused it.
I think that the next move might be the most important here for Reynor. He's going to move all of his Spore Crawlers up and hyper commit to this area just where the Broodlords are pushing in. And I think if Reynor could take this base, I think it is physically impossible for Classic to recover from it.
I would agree with that. Couple of yoinks trying to come in here, picks off a Tempest, but you know what? He's starting to lose some of those Corruptors. Some good Psystorms going off, some good damage there from Classic's army. Kills off some of these Overlords and Overseers that are in the way as he rotates down. Definitely needs to hold on to that area. That base at 9 o'clock is probably the most important spot on the map right now.
Another counterattack over here to try to draw this army away. By the way, Classic, huge play by denying the acquisition of the base that we were looking at earlier. And also the Immortals just enough in numbers to actually drive those Ultralisks away earlier. Meanwhile, Classic, you know, with these Tempests, he can continue to shell these Spore Crawlers and slowly push to the south.
I love that little army that Classic had up there. Very, very important that he doesn't keep sending his entire air army back for small counterattacks. Just a couple of mortals, a few Psy Storms in there, and that seems to be enough against the types of counterattacks Reynor has planned.
And so Classic's still in this. It seems like he's basically been able to always deal with these counters. Remember that Classic right now maxed out, can't warp in units to protect against this either. You can't get, the 5 or 6 Zealots that would basically help out. Immortals will beat Zerglings in small numbers, but it does take time. Meanwhile, some very good snags over here from Reynor, getting a few carriers and anything else he can get.
Well, he cleans up those Lings for the most part in his main base, losing some of his very important units. Reynor, of course, losing some units in here as well. He is going to have to respend and get that supply back up. Some Infestors coming up with some very nice fungals. Psystorm's trying to hit these Broodlords, but a little bit hard with those Broodlings zoning everything back.
This is a really impressive move here from Classic. And notice that Reynor's supply has dropped. He hasn't started to really refill that just yet. But I don't know if he has any more resources to mine from right now. I think that 3 o'clock.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, 3 o'clock's almost dried up.
Very close.
And now Reynor, he just spent all his money. He's dropped to 300 minerals. He's getting Corruptors, Ultras, Broodlords, and remaking that hatchery. They're both very low in minerals, by the way. There is an insane amount of gas. That may play a role later. It's insignificant right now. Also, at the top right for the Protoss, I don't think there's that much left.
No.
You see an expansion being taken here, but the other base, yeah, that's going to mine out. There's, I think, a more reasonable amount over there. So the next chess move is going to be the push from Reynor to advance onto the 9 o'clock position.
Yeah, I think you're definitely right about that. This is becoming a game that is going to revolve around just the left-hand side of the map. Because that top right is almost mined out and has a lot of static D at it, I don't think that's a location Reynor can hit anymore. Reynor, by the way, his army supply out of control. 188 army supply. That's only 12 drones remaining.
Right.
He's going for his ultimate composition to try to win this game.
And with only 12 drones, I mean, he can't get that many more minerals, but again, there's not that much left on the map. The Nexus over here at the 9 o'clock base, it's almost done. So we don't have workers sent there yet. Sometimes, strategically, it's better to let them finish the Nexus and then immediately kill it, because that way they can't cancel it and get the money back. And I think that's what Reynor's setting up to do right now.
Dude, look at the amount of Ultras that he actually added into this army. That is a lot of Ultras. Is that going to be counterattack based, or is he going to try to utilize that to clear Archons and High Templars so that his Corruptors can actually win this battle?
I don't know. I mean, I could see it being sent to the top right and trying to draw that group of units away. That's so many cannons that with batteries. Yeah, I don't think you actually break that. It's just enough.
You're going to be cost inefficient most likely if you do, right? You're going to lose a lot of very important units. Maybe you use that to try to clear the path for your Corruptors, right? That's why Dark originally kind of invented the Ultralisks with this army against Skytoss. We're going to see what Reynor's choice is, but he cannot let Classic just mine from this 9 o'clock for free, because it really feels like Classic will take the game if that's the case.
Yeah, the 9 o'clock base is the most important part of the map. It is under the control of Classic. Tactically, oh, hold on, he's just going to attack right in here.
Oh, man.
He tries to get that mothership. He does eventually take it out, and so the real fight can actually begin now.
You know, he has a lot of Void Rays in here, which definitely can help out a lot against those Corruptors and everything. The Carriers dealing a ton of damage as well. The Broodlords, with nothing left to shoot at, are being pushed back. Everything trying to get back to his spores.
Okay, he's being driven back, but there are 10 more Corruptors being made. And only a Void Ray being made here for Classic. Again, it seems like maybe Classic has the upper hand for now, but we have to see how the next minute or two do play out. He's going to flee back over here. He's using those batteries. He's recharging. The Ultras haven't been sacrificed yet. He may try to come up and once again push into the infrastructure. Oh, hold on. Instead, Classic's going to try to counter push here. This may be a bold move.
Oh, man. Look at this. The 3 Immortals helping to chunk these down so quickly. And that army that we're looking at for Reynor just doesn't look that strong. It's so Corruptor-based. And even if he kills off the Carriers and the Tempests, I mean, the ground army that we have, the Void Rays in there that'll help finish everything else off, that is a hard one for Reynor to engage.
I think that Reynor is out of range of victory now. I think the Classic, I mean, it's a scrappy game at this point in time, but those 4 resource nodes that we had on screen earlier, that's the only thing that's being mined from. These long-distance mining opportunities are basically insignificant. I think Classic is basically won, but Classic wants to finish this game. He has to push through these spores here. Can he actually do that?
Well, he's pushing as quickly as he possibly can, even letting the Void Rays take a bunch of damage from these spores, trying to just power everything down, losing some interceptors as well, but he is mining a lot compared to Reynor here. The Zealot counterattack on the right-hand side, clearing buildings that Reynor doesn't truly need, right? There's almost nothing left on that side of the map. And I think you're right, Tasteless. I think that Reynor is just out of options.
Yeah, I don't think there's any way to actually recuperate. And remember the Classic, I mean, these are a lot of mineral nodes that he's mining from, a lot of gas nodes that he could take from. Look at Reynor's minerals. It's 40, 45, 50, 55, 60.
He can make lings with that.
Yeah, I mean, there's just not a lot that you can get. He's got a lot of gas. But you know, it doesn't really matter. You need a lot more minerals before you can really capitalize on that gas in a game of StarCraft 2, especially in this matchup. And so Classic, I mean, he's looking for extra damage, but he kind of knows that right now the burden is on Reynor to try to figure something out. And Classic knows that, you know, although Reynor is still mining a little bit, the reality is that Classic is mining a little bit more, a little bit faster, and can reset and make a better army. And so, you know, again, Reynor in one of the more difficult spots to imagine him recovering from.
You know, maybe if he waits for Classic to attack in, and he hits with his 11 infestors, 11 amazing neural parasites, I could see that turn in the battle, right?
Sure.
Like if you're targeting everything down really quickly, you know, maybe you grab the Disruptor, blow up the High Templars, that type of thing. I mean, it's going to take just about a miracle, but Reynor has pulled them off before.
Yeah, and you can see steadily Reynor is beginning to vacuum up those extra resources a little bit more quickly. More mineral nodes to mine from, you know, more fruit to take from the tree, you know what I mean, there from a Classic. And Reynor, he's still below. He's below it in every conceivable metric. And I also think that this Protoss army specifically, it's just harder to kill off.
Yes.
Each unit has a way to eke out damage that's a little bit better. And Reynor, if he's going to engage this, he has to hyper commit.
Yeah, he gets one more shot.
Yeah, and he's not in a position. Well, no, I take it back. I was going to say he can't harpoon any units and try to pick them off. I guess he could, but you could see what the Templars are doing here. Feedback and eliminate that as an option. And this is a very surgical victory here from Classic.
Yeah,
I do think we are far into the twilight of this game. It's basically over, and we are seeing Reynor in his death throes. He's trying to see if he can maybe bait out an overextension here. Honestly, I had no idea this was going to be a game that was this dramatic when we got into this Sartosis.
Well, with 15 Infestors and 2 Vipers at his disposal, we do have one more chance here for Reynor. But, I mean, Classic has really shown in this first game that he is very powerful at the moment. Utilizing a strategy that we have never really seen, a lot of tech switching, just beautifully done to get himself into this late game. And honestly, in the late game, it's been kind of back and forth. But right now, with that final mining base, Classic he's just pulling ahead.
Okay, you can see the push come down once more. And is this going to be the moment we have the actual commitment here? Again, you can see the Psy Storms come down. He does manage to neural those Immortals here. He's going to keep advancing forward here, but here come those Void Rays charged up and ready to commit to a fight. And I think that's exactly why we saw that be the unit of endgame choice tech here, Artosis.
And he had such a good spread on them as well. Fungal growth and parasitic bomb, the counters to the Void Ray, neither of them being utilized as efficiently as Reynor needed. And now he's trying to micro his Corruptors to get damage, but GG is called, and Classic takes a game number 1, an epic game number 1. What was that, 45 minutes long?
I think, yeah, almost 50 minutes long.
Almost an hour long.
It was insane, and we're just getting started, everybody. This is a best of 3.
but I think what many would call at least the beginnings of an upset here. Classic is now up 1-0.
Well, I tell you, maybe in this day and age, you would think that, like, oh yeah, that's an upset. Reynor's been doing so well, but don't forget the Classic, for many years in his career, has been considered the greatest Protoss player in the world. So the fact that he is continuing to improve, continuing to show us that he still has it in him, it doesn't surprise me in the least.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like we are, if he can keep this up, entering a new era of Classic domination. I think one of the most complex middle periods of that game, we would call that normally late game, but it went for so long. A much more grindy end game than the TVZs even that we see that have a lot of the same ideas, where the Terran basically wants to do what we call exhaust play on the Zerg, where the Zerg runs out of stuff on their side, and the Terran, and now in this case the Protoss, quietly take the final base on the map, and it's checkmate.
Well, Reynor's going to have a lot to think about after that loss, right? That's kind of a tough one, because I'm sure there were points in that game where he's like, I've got this, you know? He gets in these positions that he's very used to winning, and then Classic still claws it back from him. Also, he's going to have to keep an eye out for the early game, because Classic has always been one of the most strategically diverse Protoss players. He has more build orders, more strategies than probably any other Protoss in the history of the game, and he showed a brand new one here against Reynor.
Yeah, that's right. One thing to remember about StarCraft is that this is a game where every game is going to look differently here. And the reality is that maybe Reynor goes for a quick game, maybe he goes for a short game here.
Yeah, it's very hard to say. I think after you play a big macro game like that, you may have the idea that you want to play a more aggressive game, play a faster pace game. Do you really want to go into multiple 30-minute games, right? Because anytime it actually ends up with SkyToss compositions, it takes about 32 minutes in a normal game to get down to the last mining base. Obviously, this one took a bit longer because they were counterattacking so much, but that makes for a very long series.
Stamina is, at times, one of the most important things to have in a game of StarCraft, in a tournament with a format like we have here at Gamers8. But, we're very early on in this, and that had to be an extremely tiring game on both sides. It looks like we're going to give these players a little bit of time to do a reset, but shortly here, we're going to be moving on into Game 2.
Yeah, they're just kind of taking a drink, collecting their thoughts, trying to think about, okay, well, that was different. That wasn't what either of them were probably expecting for that game to look like. And now they have to prepare themselves, right? For Reynor, being in this first round and having such a difficult match against Classic, if you start off with a loss in this triple elimination format, I mean, that is not where you want to be as a former world champion.
And is Classic going to go for that opening? I mean, the ending of the game, I think, is what really stuck with everybody, but we have to remember how it started. I mean, every StarCraft game, it's a few decisions early on, and that ripples into the future of the game, and you end up in these positions that would be completely different had you not made those calls. And in that last game, we had Void Ray into carriers immediately.
Yeah. Such a strange one.
All right, going back now into Game 2 in the upper left, in the red, up 1-0. He is Classic. And in the bottom right, in the blue, our Zerg player, he is Reynor. You even see the quick wrist stretch there. I can't imagine how tight my wrist would feel after that game these guys played.
Yeah, that is for sure. These guys played at an astounding speed, and especially a game like that, you're more likely to kind of tense up and be like, oh, just highly stressed trying to take down such a bizarre game.
Yeah, no, games that are that long, that are that close, you can finish it and suddenly realize that your neck and shoulders have turned into cement.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, taking a look at game number 2 here, Tasteless, we're on Gressvon, and just generally speaking, this does give us pretty big macro games. I feel like it's kind of the best map in the pool overall for that type of game. We see a lot of back and forth tugs through the center. So honestly, if you had just shown me the map pool before the game, and I guess they did, but I wasn't paying attention, but I would probably say, oh, if there's going to be a 45-minute game, I'm going to guess Gressvon for that one.
Yeah, sure.
So I could definitely see this game going long if no one takes a really dedicated all-in approach.
It does seem to me like Classic would not be the guy that would just go for the sort of, the standard build. Like, this is how I see the matchup every game.
Yeah.
It seems like lately we don't have many players that have that approach. Protoss has always leaned a little bit towards, like, chaotic good or chaotic evil in that.
Normally chaotic evil, yeah.
And we have a lot of these games where, you have a couple core plays, a couple solid fast expands into third base, into macro style, but usually you mix into the best of three some kind of timing attack, or maybe you can set a build up that looks pretty standard and it's really a disguise. It's masked very well, and you're going to try to hit them with some kind of timing. And of course, from Reynor's perspective as well, I mean, there's nothing in the rulebook that says he has to turtle and go for a macro game.
Sure. It's a good point. Now, that being said, sometimes I feel like in a best of three, Protosses will too obviously do that, right? Like, they'll play the big macro game, and then they'll just be like, hey, it's a Glaives all in. But honestly, like, Zerg players are so good at defending those types of builds at this point. Those have been around forever. Like, we already saw that today, right? Creator totally undetected with a charge all in, and Serral with one Roach and one Queen able to hold off like 12 charge shots.
Oh my God, he blocked it again. I can't believe it. This is a really delayed third hatchery Artosis.
Yes, Tasteless. I can't believe that.
The Adept Shade did a skateboard trick through the building animation of the hatchery.
Oh, man.
Classic is on top of the early game. This is sick.
I quickly glanced down at Reynor there. If that was Creator, he would have smashed his keyboard for sure.
That was a wild start. And,
that's a good start for Classic.
Well, to delay the third base basically twice, which a lot of the early game openings from Zerg are always engineered so that never happens.
Yeah.
And there we saw him pull that off pretty perfectly here. I feel like Reynor's in a little bit of trouble here.
Well, an Oracle flies over. He's going to end up losing this Overlord. It looks like a pretty standard opener from Classic, getting the double Oracle here. We're just going to have to see if the Oracles actually can do any damage. I feel like this is the moment for Reynor where he has to tighten up a little bit, right? Because already it feels like Classic has outdone him slightly. It's not like game ending or anything, but if these Oracles fly across the map and get 6-7 drone kills right off the bat, that's the writing's on the wall at that point.
Normally the Oracles and their move outs are the first dramatic interruption. Where the Protoss can try to find opportunities to get ahead. Already with that third hatchery delayed slightly, I would say this is a very good start here. So now we wait, we see from Classic's perspective, can he get the damage in? The three Queens are absolutely set up to deny this. And another three over here. We do see at least one drone. He's going to get a second. He does.
Okay, pretty good pull there from Reynor, honestly. He did a lot of damage to one of the Oracles as well. Classic doing his best to move around and dodge these Queen hits, and only gets 3 drones so far. So that's like kind of the middle ground, kind of expected. Zerg's not too sad, and Protoss is not crying either.
Okay, 4 drones. I think this is okay for Reynor. 4 more gateways are going to come down. I want to make this absolutely clear, by the way. This will not be the same kind of mid-game that we had in Game 1. Completely different tech choice. This is what, if you were going to learn the game and try to ladder, you would try this style of play here from Classic. And so Classic's going for a pretty solid standard push. He's going to try to create pressure. It doesn't necessarily mean he's going to hyper-commit to any one location, but he will be looking to take a fight as we get further along here into mid-game.
Certainly, as Blink and +1 finish up, you want to put that pressure on. I'd imagine that Classic is also going to take a 4th Nexus, right? You really do want to continue to work on that economy with this type of style. The Adepts come in, and they don't scale that well, so you do want to try to trade them out. I think he does, like, okay once again. 4 kills, now 5 with the Oracles flying back in. We'll see if they can get any more than that, but I feel like the harassment phase is very close to over at this point.
Yeah, not losing Oracles so far is pretty big. Oracles have a lot of value further along into the late game. Especially for monitoring, where the Zerg's core army is and how they're going to behave on the map. That's really kind of the Zerg's way to try to engage and get intel. As the Zerg spreads creep and has overlords across the map, the Protoss has to try to track those large groups of units
and be ready to deal with whatever's going to come their way. And a quick fourth base here from Classic, reminding me very much of what we've seen here from Hero in the past.
Yes, indeed. This is certainly Hero-inspired, what we're seeing from Classic. We'll see how he follows it up. He's actually going for Size Storm right now, which I have seen a little bit of lately, but it does feel like if you really do commit into like a Roach Ravager type of push, it can be a little bit hard trying to grind that down right away with Size Storm, but it doesn't seem like that's the path for Reynor. He is more of a Ling type of guy.
Okay, it looks like he's actually not going to get the kill over there on that Overlord. He is beginning to roam here with these Stalkers. Blink is a few seconds out, and you know, once Blink is done, you can roam the map, much more comfortably. And Reynor's going to have to expand again. I mean, already you can see that Classic is putting the pressure on. The Lings are not quite able to get up. If they do commit down, then you trigger the Oracles, and you're always going to win that fight.
A little bit of scouting going on here from Reynor, just checking to make sure. We can see Reynor there in the shape of a trophy, trying to figure out what he's...
What does the trophy think of this
Look
play?
at that trophy-shaped face Reynor is making as he scouts normal tech. He's truly shocked.
So 4 bases versus 4 bases, that always makes the Zerg a little bit uncomfortable. The Zerg wants to be ahead. They need to be growing. They need to be trying to take another location here. And so we're going to see where Reynor expands and then how Classic wants to set up to fight that. It looks like Reynor is not necessarily set up to have a full-on attack, but instead a counterattack if we see a push here from Classic.
Well, right now with this many Banelings being made, how many Size Storms will you have in Archon coming up here as well? Some like reasonable Sim Cities exist here for Classic. They don't look invincible, but pretty good. I love when you have the gateway kind of blocking the path into those probes because you really do have to be careful, right? When +2 finishes, those Banelings are one-shot in probes for the rest of the game.
Okay, we see actually, as more and more Banelings are being made, I stand corrected. This is going to be a committed attack into here. And it looks like we're going to see this group of units gather up over here. There's nothing he can do about these Oracles, though, so they can just snipe the Banelings. Beautifully done. Is Classic overextending?
Man, I tell you, I like that he's trying to get the Storms out here before those Overlords can really get the creep down on the ground. That's kind of a new tactic we've been seeing a lot. Mass Overlord coming up for creep drops for some of these attacks. And to go out there and kind of punish, trying to grind down Banelings so there's not quite as large a mass, I really appreciate the way that Classic is playing this game.
Yeah, he is hungry to try to do another big attack. This is a big gas dump, by the way, here for Reynor. Reynor very much interested in trying to take this head on. He's taken his own expansion, but he's dumped a lot of gas over into these Banes. And once more, we have the Oracles coming through here, targeting and killing these Banes. Reynor is getting no value.
Yeah.
Anytime you see a Baneling killed and it doesn't even connect to a target, it is lost value.
Absolutely massive stasis ward there as well. Oh man, just no way for Reynor to get in and get the damage done. Storm's going down relentlessly upon these Banelings rolling in. I mean, obviously Classic is losing a few units here and there, taking some damage on his Stalkers, but there's no way you don't look at this and smile at how well Classic is playing.
Yeah, well, Classic here with the better arc, and the Stalkers just able to try to get value over and over again here. Reynor, again, I mean, it's a back and forth fight here, but he's not getting the kind of fights that he wants to have.
Well, right now the Roach Bane rolling in once again. A lot of Immortals coming up. All the High Templars pulled back so that they cannot be sniped down. And Reynor has to retreat. He does have a healthy drone count. He's just now starting his Hive, though. This doesn't look very good for him.
This really goes to show you what you can get done with Stalkers with Blake. They're so good after you've won a fight at chasing everything down and getting additional kills. And look, man, Reynor has like 100 gas, okay? He spent all of his gas to set up for a fight that he never really even got to take over the Nexus. It was basically Classic taking a position that was superior with a better arc and kind of fighting, storming, blinking away, targeting. And it's going to be tough for Reynor to get anything done unless he can get his opponent out of position. Meanwhile, we've got Stargate tech into play.
It looks like Classic is getting ready for that next phase. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if he can win the game before he really gets into carriers, but I think it's a good thing to prepare. It's 5 base versus 5 base. He's been quite efficient so far. He's got some pretty high quality upgrades and a really good, strong standing army at the moment. So I definitely don't want to see him just straight go into carriers. Get the upgrades ready, get the buildings ready, but get across that map and see if you can finish Reynor right now.
It's a Zerg idea, but with a Protoss playing it here. He's going to try to trade out some of that army to then open up the supply and then get that Stargate tech up here. And Reynor has some Banes, not a lot. And if the Protoss can take a fight and maybe even kill off a hatchery, I don't know that there's going to be any way to recover. Really good blinks.
All right, some good storms going down there. That Stasis Ward actually doing a great job of funneling all the Banelings up the right-hand side, making the side storms even better against them. Stasis Ward, so ridiculous. Look at this, twice the cost efficiency for Classic when he's on the same number of bases. How do you even deal with that as Zerg?
And the Protoss is so well positioned over here. You could basically deny the minerals from being mined over here. You could technically, if you have an opportunity to do so, blink up into that location and even take the hatchery out. But he's going to continue to move in here. By the way, no Stargate tech being made. Classic realizes he has such an advantage, he might as well abandon fully committing to the Stargate. Just one carrier being made. Instead, 2 more Immortals and an Archon about to mix with the group.
Yeah, he's just making as much as he can right now, pushing forward, a blink forward there as well, and Reynor's got nothing left over. I think we're going to be seeing a GG pretty quickly here, Tasteless.
Yeah, I think that Reynor is cooked. GG! Classic wins with a 2-0. Protoss with style over here, Artosis. 2 extremely different games. And Reynor, who I think many people thought was an obvious favorite, is in a little bit of trouble here in our Swiss system here in Gamers8.
Classic has to be very happy with this opening series to take down a former world champion 2-0. You know, Protosses have had a little bit of a harder time against Zergs lately, but Classic showing just another level. And I tell you what, I hope that this is his formal return to his prime form, because if it is, we may have a Protoss champion on our hands here at Gamers8.
You couldn't have said it better myself, Artosis. What do you call his formal return to his Protoss form?
No, nothing even close to that, Taste. This is good to know that you really listen to me when I cast with you.
Well, I got to say, this is a pleasant surprise here for our first cast at Gamers8. Classic did it to Reynor, and if you can beat Reynor, I mean, it seems like you should be able to beat anybody here. I guess the question is going to be, you know, how far can he actually go? We're going to go now to an interview with Classic on the stage and get his thoughts and feelings as he is now 2-0'd Reynor in what I would consider a pretty big upset.
An impressive series, an incredible first game, and a very clean second game, Classic. Congratulations. I'm curious about that first game, though. Almost 50 minutes long. Did it play out as you expected with the strategy you started with?
첫 번째 게임은 아주 길었는데 본인이 세운 전략대서 잘 되셨나요?
첫 번째 경기는 제가 그래도 빌드를 전략을 준비해 왔었는데 조금 더 쉽게 이길 줄 알았는데 생각보다 상대 선수가 대처를 잘해가지고 준비한 거에 비해서는 1세트를 굉장히 힘들게 이겼던 것 같습니다.
So I prepared for the I did well on the I prepared for the building to be more faster, but the opponent was very smart and had a great defense, and that's why I thought I was gonna win it easily, but it didn't.
زي ما تشوفون اعزائنا المشاهدين، كلاسيك معنا بعد الفوز في المباراه. سالناه السؤال الاول، كيف قدرت انك تفوز الجيم الاول والثاني، خصوصا الثاني ما كان له 15 دقيقه وخلصتوه بسرعه، فكان الاستراتيجيه اللي انت جاهز لها للجيم، هل كان الشيء هذا مخطط له انك تخلص الجيم بسرعه ولا لا؟ يقول صراحه حتى الجيم الاول انا مفروض اني كنت بخلص الجيم بسرعه، لكن ما حصل لي الفرصه اني اسوي الشيء هذا، فاضطريت اني اطول الجيم شوي، بالاخير قدر يخلصه، لكن في الجيم الثاني مشت على الخطه اللي هو مخطط لها اصلا.
My next question, Classic. It seemed that it was such a different build. Were you focused on beating Reynor with this build, or is this just another build for you?
Reynor 플레이어랑 이길 작정이셨나요?
굉장히 힘든 이제 되게 잘하는 선수긴 하지만 제가 준비를 잘해왔기 때문에 충분히 이길 자신이 있었습니다.
He's a great player, but I was planning to win the game.
Well, it is very...
نو وريز. زي ما جمعنا اعزائنا المشاهدين، احنا السؤال الثاني سالنا اللاعب انه هل بيكون في امكانيه انك تقدر تخلص الجيم بسرعه؟ الاستراتيجيه اللي انت جيت فيها للجيم هل انت كنت مخطط لها اصلا ولا لا؟ قالوا انه لا، فعلا رينر هو لاعب عظيم جدا، لكن بنفس الوقت انا كنت جاي عشان افوز الجيم.
Well, very exciting matches, Classic. Can't wait to see more from you as the tournament continues. And I know you've got your team here cheering for you. We can hear them all the way in the back. So congratulations as you move on.
يعطيكم العافيه اعزائنا المشاهدين. جاء الوقت فيه ان نروح للاستوديو نتكلم عن ال 2-0 العظيمه اللي شفناها من كلاسيك، شيء ما كان متوقع، فخلونا نتكلم عنه اكثر مع الاستوديو.
Back to y'all in the studio.
It's a big win and a big start for Classic here in our Swiss format as he takes out Reynor on his way, on his path, on his campaign here through Gamers8. It feels like we were here a while ago since that first game went on quite a while, but ZG, Roddy, joining me for this one. We had some question marks maybe on who was going to take this one, Roddy, but seems like Classic dispelled those.
Yeah, I mean, we went over it. Classic was on a 3-series win streak, and we're like, that's impressive. Some of it is online, big tournament. We still kind of lean towards the player that made it to 3 World Championship finals in a row, and the man that normally shows up in a big way in tournaments like this. And obviously for Reynor, there is still plenty of room to improve his play throughout the tournament. And it's not even that Reynor looked bad or off. I'm just blown away by how good Classic was, man. It felt that almost everything he touched turned into gold. Like, at first I was like, okay, game 1 was starting a bit weird. He's trying to confuse Reynor. I think it kind of worked, right? Reynor made a few roaches that he didn't have to make. Dropped the Spire early. It's like, should he make Corrupted, yes or no? But the way that Classic just transitioned throughout the game, the way he split up his army to pick off hatcheries left and right, and especially the absolute final fight of the game, that Void Ray Concave, my goodness, man. Like, that's not even supposed to happen in pro level. That was picture perfect.
These highlights brought to you by STC for the analysis as well, and ZG looking at how this went down. Obviously, yeah, it was a long process for this first game, but Classic played it great.
Yes, he did. I will say that I did think that Reynor was a little shaky towards the beginning, like he was warming up a little bit, but then it seemed like he was doing maybe better in some of the mid-game parts, or mid-late game, or whatever you call it. It was 40 minutes.
He looked better later, for sure, yeah.
And then Classic was able to bring it back again. But then the second game was really well done by Classic and really highlighted his understanding of the pace of the matchup. But for this first game in particular, I did want to talk about the build a little bit, because I know it's seemed like a bit of surprise. I have seen some Protosses try this opener. We certainly saw Hero try something similar in GSL as well. But the whole like adding on ground versus air and then kind of doing both at certain moments and the I suppose the choices that you can make, I feel like would really confuse a Zerg. It could backfire extraordinarily. I think we're going to see this happen later on in the tournament. It's going to look really bad. But for this particular game, it worked out, I think, really well to really offset Reynor.
Roddy, thoughts?
I mean, we're still looking at some of these highlights in game 1. We had some crazy fights. There were a couple moments where you thought that it did seem that Reynor had the game in the back, because Reynor had phenomenal traits. But Classic just made it so hard for Reynor to figure out exactly how much he needs of each assorted unit. Should the main focus be on that ground army? Should the main focus be on anti-air? And it's a very fine line to tread. I loved it. And okay, you're in a rush. Fine, James, go ahead.
Gotta get stuff done. Let's take a look at the standings here so far as well, because we're getting ready for our next matches as well. And updating you guys on the standings is very important here when it comes to this Swiss format that we have so far. So, as it stands, here we have a lot of 1-0s technically going on for 8 players and a lot of 0-1s for 8 players here, as we have. What was interesting about the first round here, it really was non-Koreans versus Koreans, and it seemed like it went, I think, 6-2 in favor of Korea.
That is correct, yeah. There's a minor error in this graphic, because obviously Clem should be 1-0 and Classic is listed there twice, but Classic and Sero are the only 2 non-Koreans that won their opening match. Other than that, so far the Koreans looking strong. One last thing then, James, because I know you're in a rush, but that second game, what Classic did, what really impressed me, is the way that he controlled 2 Blink Stalker armies, and one of them had High Templars inside of it, and he just kept running back and forth, never allowing the Balings to touch those HCs. That is so much more difficult than it looks, and that was incredibly impressive control.
And we have group results as well, even though I assumed that those were just the results as a whole, as we take a look as well and see what's going on. Okay, so it's effectively what is coming up next as well. So in terms of the scheduled matches that are to hit. Cyril versus Hero, Cure versus Maru. Oh my days, Solar versus Clem, Classic Beyond.
Every one of them, you're just like, whoa,
yeah. Whoa. I love this. This is brilliant.
My, match 7 as well. Oh my goodness.
Reynor versus Oliveira.
Wow.
And both of them all in one.
And a Laser versus Dark at the end? Like, these are all like...
Classics.
Like, these are all
absolute
classics.
Yeah.
Is this rigged?
Yeah.
This is amazing.
This is almost perfect.
Yeah, well, what a great second round we have coming. Of course, we're going to be watching quite a lot of this second round here on this stream, but there is also the B stream. So make sure you've got both open and watching all of these matches. ZG, this is amazing.
It really is like perfect. There's only like 1, maybe 2 matches there where I'm like, oh, I don't know if there's that much history, but I'm pretty sure that even has history. Like Here Marine Creator, I think was one of them, and I was like, oh, is there history there? But I think there actually is. Of course, I'm gonna look into it more, but every single one of them is just, yeah, there's lots to work with.
Well, I think that's our next match coming up here on the main stage. So thank you very much, guys. It is time for a break. When we return, we are back with more excellent StarCraft. Did you see that lineup? Join us after this.